Today we're looking at the recently released Samyang 35mm f1.4 Mark II and the popular Sigma 35mm f1.4 DGDN. Both of these lenses are similar in terms of size, weight, spec and price, but which one should you buy? Well, today we're going to find out.
Oh Lord, here we go again. I just dropped 2 tabs and I lost my friends. Oh Lord, here we go again. I just dropped 2 tabs and I lost my friends. I'm like, oh Lord, here we go again. I just dropped 2 tabs and I lost my friends. Oh Lord, here we go again. I just dropped 2, drop.
So jumping straight into the test, as I've kind of already alluded to, these lenses are very similarly priced both in the UK and the US. So when it comes to awarding points for price, both of these lenses pick up an early mark in this contest. In terms of build quality, the Sigma is constructed from a mixture of metal and composite plastics, whilst the Samyang is largely made from plastic with just a few hints of metal here and there, which I do have to admit does make it feel ever so slightly less solid in the hand in comparison to the Sigma. Both lenses also include a dust and weatherproof construction, complete with a rubber gasket around the metal lens mount. So if plasticky lenses bother you, then my advice would be to opt for the Sigma, but for me personally, I think both of these lenses are very nicely put together and it doesn't really bother me that much, so I'm going to award both of them a point in this round. Both lenses are very similar in terms of weight and size, and they both feel very nicely balanced on the front of both my Sony a7 Mark III and a7 Mark IV. As for handling and features, the Sigma offers an MF to AF switch, a customizable AF lock button, and a manual aperture ring that can be locked into auto mode using the handy switch on the side, and this can also be declicked using this switch here. The Samyang, on the other hand, has a refined choice of manual dials and switches and includes a customizable AF lock button and a custom switch. Now by default, setting this switch to mode 1 will allow the lens to function just as you would expect, but setting it over to mode 2 allows the focus ring to now adjust the aperture value instead, which is pretty clever. Samyang have also hinted at further customization options for this lens with future firmware releases, but you will first need to purchase Samyang's lens dock in order to do this. When in manual mode, although both of the focus dials operate nice and smoothly, they both have a slight delay to them and a noticeably long throw, which does make performing focus pulls more awkward than it really should be, but by no means impossible. Well, seeing as I really don't have that much to moan about in this round, I think both of these lenses deserve a point. When it comes to autofocus, in good lighting conditions, both of these lenses are rapid to focus with no signs of hunting. In low light conditions, although both lenses did slow ever so slightly and took a little bit longer to lock onto their target, they still managed to find the target with no problem, and neither of them showed any signs of hunting. When shooting wide open in high-speed continuous mode, almost all of the shots I took with these two lenses were sharp and in focus, so a pretty impressive performance across the board. And so this means that both of these lenses deserve a point in this round. Switching over to video mode, both lenses managed to keep locked onto George as he walked towards the camera at a regular pace. When repeating the test but at a faster pace, again both lenses tracked George with no issues at all. As for AF noise, both of these lenses are totally silent. When it comes to focus breathing, the Samyang offers the best results with not much focus breathing at all. The Sigma, on the other hand, breathes heavier than R. Kelly visiting a girls-only high school, so if you're a videographer that hates focus breathing, then the Samyang is clearly the better option. But pedophiles aside, both of these lenses put in yet another top-tier performance in this round, so it's points all round again. In our Bokeh Balls test, neither result was perfect, with both lenses creating nice round orbs at the centre, but with misshapen balls of light towards the edges of the frame. Both sets of results feature haloing around the orbs, but the Samyang in particular has a more prominent halo effect, which, as you'll see later, can be fairly distracting in certain lighting conditions. In terms of general bokeh quality, both lenses create a nice thick blur when shooting at f1.4, and overall the results are just too close to call an overall winner. So with both lenses providing very closely matched results, it's yet another tie in this round. The lens flare results were fairly similar, though artifacting is slightly more prominent in the Samyang footage when compared side by side with the Sigma results. In any case, if this type of thing bothers you, both of these lenses do come included with lens hoods to help shade the front element in harsh lighting conditions. On a longitudinal chromatic aberration test, the Sigma lens has significant blue fringing at the top, turning into amber fringing at the bottom, whilst the Samyang features teal colouring at the top and amber fringing at the bottom. When shooting out in the real world with these lenses, I really had very little to complain about. Both of them are really nicely balanced on my camera, and they are quick and reliable in terms of autofocus, which meant that I had tons of images to choose from when editing up in Lightroom. As I mentioned earlier in the video, in some lighting conditions, that haloing effect created by the Samyang meant that the bokeh appeared quite messy and a bit too distracting for my own personal taste, but what do you think? Would this be enough to put you off buying this lens entirely? Be sure to let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. Though bokeh aside, in terms of overall sharpness, when shooting wide open at f1.4, it really is hard to tell these results apart from just looking at these results alone. So in order to find a winner, we are going to have to do a bit of peeping. And no, not the same kind of peeping I know you little rascals like to do outside my bathroom window every night. Don't stop, I quite like it. No, not that kind of peeping. We're talking about pixel peeping. So when looking at the test charts, you can see that the Samyang suffers from barrel distortion, whilst the Sigma results are almost entirely distortion-free. However, when we zoom into the center, the Samyang provides a noticeably better result when shooting wide open at f1.4, both in terms of sharpness and contrast. At the corners, both sets of results are now much softer and also have traces of coloured fringing. When shooting close up, the Samyang once again provides a much sharper result with more contrast when compared side by side with the Sigma chart. This means that the Samyang is the clear winner in this round and gets the final and deciding point in this contest. So despite these lenses being so closely matched throughout the majority of this head-to-head test, it all came down to image quality in the end, with the Samyang being the overall winner.